Hello, the following presentation is intended to update the Board of Education and the community on the status of District 33's grade level growth. After you have viewed this presentation, we invite you to view the District School Improvement Plan presentation to learn about the numerous initiatives taking place in buildings and classrooms across the district to increase achievement. This chart represents preschool picture naming and vocabulary development, critical pre-literacy skills in pre-kindergarten. The Get It, Got It, Go is a nationally normed 1-minute timed vocabulary test. 39% of English speakers and 26% of our Spanish speakers scored in the proficient range on this test. The component vocabulary test is a locally developed assessment consisting of 102 vocabulary words that students should know by the end of preschool. 50% of our English speakers and 39% of our Spanish speakers scored in the proficient range on this test. The following kinder charts show how full-day kinder has had a positive impact on student outcomes. This chart represents letter sound fluency, which is a foundational skill for kinder students. Once students master letter sound fluency, they move into Fountas and Pinnell testing to determine their reading stage level. The full-day kinder program, as well as district training and small group reading instruction, has allowed students to achieve proficiency with letter sound fluency in English sooner than in past years. This necessitated an assessment that would allow us to track their movement through stages of reading. You will see the Fountas and Pinnell scores in the later slides. This chart shows the comparison from last year's winter half-day students to this year's full-day kinder program. As you can see, there was a significant increase. Letter sound fluency is a strong focus in the fall and winter. This chart shows a comparison of last spring's half-day kindergarten program to this spring's full-day kinder program in letter sound fluency. At first glance, it looks like outcomes didn't improve. But due to students mastering letter sounds more quickly, by spring, kinder teachers have now been able to move the focus of instruction to reading rather than individual letter sounds. We have added Fountas and Pinnell testing to allow for teachers to track kinder students' stages of reading. This chart shows the Fountas and Pinnell level comparison from last year to this year. This assessment assesses the stages of reading in English. This is a new assessment that was added to ensure we are tracking students' movement through the stages of reading. The goal is for students to end the year in a level C, which is shown in green. This shows a positive change in kindergarten. Once students master letter sound fluency, we are able to shift our instruction to words and reading. More students are meeting and exceeding end of kindergarten reading expectations in English. You can see that as designated in the colors green and blue. This assessment was new last year and requires a lot of practice for inter-rater reliability. This slide shows winter Spanish letter sound fluency from last year's half-day kindergarten as compared to this year's full-day program. This year's full-day kindergarten class shows more progress than last year's half-day kindergarten class in the winter. These gains are attributed to the full-day kindergarten program. This chart is a comparison of last year to this year's spring results in half-day and full-day kindergarten in Spanish. Look at the size of the colored portion of each bar on the graph. We saw the same results in English letter sound fluency. Letter sounds have leveled off as reading whole words has become an instructional focus. Fountas and Pinnell Spanish reading results were mixed in Spanish. This includes all students who were assessed in Spanish, including dual language students that are English speakers. While more students are advanced as shown in the blue, other levels were not as strong. Last year, this assessment was new to teachers. It requires a lot of practice to be accurate. As we implement consistency in language of instruction through our dual language model, we will be closely monitoring how students are moving to the stages of reading in both English and Spanish. This chart reflects number identification, which is a foundational skill for number sense. This test requires both accuracy and speed. As you can see, more students were assessed this year than last year. As teachers are seeing the value in number fluency, we have more accuracy in the number of students being assessed. Both the Spanish and English Reading Ames Web Assessments are assessments of oral reading fluency in first grade. This score reflects how many words are read correctly in 1 minute. The 50th percentile is the middle of the score range and considered the middle of the average range in comparison to Illinois students. In an ideal world, 50% of our students would meet or exceed this score. We met the ideal for Spanish reading fluency. For math computation, D33 students scored slightly above the Illinois 50th percentile, or D33's average score was slightly above the Illinois average. In first grade English oral reading fluency, 31% of students met the 50th percentile or the ideal score. That number reflects both English and Spanish speakers. In first grade Spanish oral reading fluency, 50% of students met the 50th percentile or the ideal score. That number reflects all bilingual and dual language English speakers who were assessed in Spanish. In first grade number computation, 58% of students met the 50th percentile or the ideal score. That number reflects all first grade students, both English and Spanish speakers. These are the results for end-of-year Fountas and Pinnell first grade reading levels. This is a new assessment and measures students' progress through the important stages of reading. The top bar is English reading and the bottom bar is Spanish reading. For English, about 33% of students were at or above grade level expectations. For Spanish reading, about 45% of students were at or above grade level expectations. The blue reflects students who are above grade level in reading. The green reflects the students who are meeting grade level expectations in reading. The English scores include both Spanish and English speakers who are assessed in English. The Spanish scores include all Spanish speakers as well as dual English speakers. At second grade, both Spanish and English Reading Ames Web Assessments again reflect oral reading fluency. WRC means words read correctly in 1 minute. The district English reading score is below the state 50th percentile. We were slightly above the state 50th percentile for Spanish reading fluency. For math computation, D33 students scored slightly below the Illinois 50th percentile. English scores include both Spanish and English speakers. Spanish scores include Spanish speakers as well as dual English speakers. These are the results for second grade's end-of-year Fountas and Pinnell reading levels. The top bar is English reading and the bottom bar is Spanish reading. For English, about 35% of students were at or above grade level expectations. For Spanish reading, about 36% of students were at or above grade level expectations. The MAP assessment is a benchmark measure in English. It is a short general sampling of grade level skills. It is measured with a RIT score or an instructional level. These are comparisons of national and district mean or average scores on MAP in English. The national mean is the 50th percentile, and in an ideal world, our district mean would be the same as the national sample, and 50% of our students would score at or above that point. This assessment is conducted in English only, is computerized, and is given for the first time in third grade. It reflects all students, both Spanish and English speakers. 25% of third graders scored at or above the national mean in reading. 26% of third graders scored at or above the national mean in math. Again, these are comparisons of national and district mean or average scores on MAP in English in fourth grade. This is an assessment of students' instructional level of grade level skills. The number of students at or above the national mean has risen from third grade. In reading, from 25% in third grade to 29% at or above the national mean in fourth grade. For math, the increase was from 26% in third grade to 30% at the national mean score in fourth grade. MAP also calculates a projected growth score based on what is typical growth for students with a specific instructional score and at a certain grade level. Our goal on MAP is for 50% of students to meet their projected growth. These are the changes in growth for this spring's fourth graders in comparison to last year's third graders, the same group of students from one year to the next. The number of students who met their projected or expected level of growth remained about the same for reading and math over the 2 years for the same group of students. Again, there are small gains in the number of students who are at or above the national mean. While the goal is 50%, the percent of 5th grade students at or above the mean is 31% for reading, which is an increase from 4th grade's 29%. In math, there was an increase from 4th grade's 32% to 5th grade's 38%. MAP calculates a projected growth score based on what is typical growth for students with a specific RIT score and at a certain grade level. Our goal on MAP is for 50% of students to meet their projected growth. These are the changes in growth for this spring's 5th graders. The number of students who met their projected or expected level of growth increased for reading and decreased for math, while still above the 50% meeting growth goal over the 2 years for the same group of students. For 6th grade, there was another increase in students at or above the national mean from 5th grade numbers last year. In math, there was a drop in the percent of District 33 students at or above the national mean from 5th grade last year to 6th grade this year. These are the results for this spring's 6th graders in comparison to last spring's 5th graders. This reflects the same group of students. The number of students meeting their projected growth in reading remained about the same from last year to this year. The number of students meeting their expected growth dropped from 5th grade to 6th grade in math. One possible reason is in 5th grade, math is 60 minutes of daily instruction, while in 6th grade it drops to 41 minutes of daily instruction. For 7th grade, the percent of students meeting their projected growth score is 44% in reading and 27% in math. Again, 50% is the ideal. These are the results for this spring's 7th graders in comparison to how they performed last year as 6th graders. This is the same group of students. The number of students meeting their projected growth in reading increased from last year to this year. The number of students meeting their expected growth increased from 6th grade to 7th grade in math as well. On MAP, the national mean is the 50th percentile, and in an ideal world, our district mean would be the same as the national sample, with 50% of our students scoring at or above that point. In reading, 43% of 8th graders were at or above the national mean in reading. In math, 32% of 8th graders were at or above the national mean in math. These are the results for MAP growth from 7th to 8th grade. The cohort represents the students who finished 8th grade this year. During their 7th grade year, more students met their growth projection than in their 8th grade year. The reverse was true for math. More students met their growth projection as 8th graders than 7th graders. ECRA growth is calculated by combining 3 previous test scores and determining the amount of growth across those 3 points in time. The blue represents above average growth. The green represents average growth, the yellow below expectations of growth, and red far below expectations of growth. None of our spring growth measures showed red or far below the expectation level, but for 4th grade we did see slowed growth in reading and math as compared to what is typical. On ECRA, these benchmark assessments show that these grades in math and reading maintained the usual pace of growth for West Chicago students. As a grade level on ECRA, 2nd grade showed above average growth in reading fluency. This is an indication that students learn basic reading skills at an accelerated rate compared to the grade levels previous or earlier in the year rate. For information on district improvement planning related to the district's growth data, please see the D33 District Improvement Plan on the district's webpage.